All right, and welcome to another episode of Influencer Profits. Our guest today is Miria Sumila. Oh my gosh, see, I told you I was so scared I didn't want to smash it up, and here I did. So Miria Sumila, she is a mentor, she is an author, she is really, I love speaking to her on how she integrates using the personality types, really helping be able to help people integrate in themselves, whether you're an introvert, whether you're an extrovert. We're just kind of having a brief conversation of if you're a little bit of both, what that means. So I'm really excited to be diving in, hearing exactly what it is that you do, how you help your clients in the world, and how you're helping them make a deeper impact as well. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It's so great to be here with you today. Thanks for your time.
So say it right for everybody else, because I just totally butchered it and I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's Maria Sumilov.
There we go. Okay, it wasn't too bad.
If
Yeah,
you got
did well.
one, like one name is interesting and challenging to say, she'll nail it. Yeah, two, that's not often, right? That's not often. So you're obviously very special. So tell us, like, what you do, what kind of impact you're making now, and then how did you get there? Where was the starting point, and how did you get on that pathway?
Well, just to start with, I guess a lot of people generally wonder where I'm from. And I was born in Finland. And I was born to a family of alcoholism and substance abuse. And with a really, good one parent. My mother was excellent, just a beautiful person, or is a beautiful person. And I've lived in 4 different countries. I've lived in Ireland, I've lived in Switzerland, now I'm in Australia. So I consider myself as a bit of a global citizen, but more than that, there's been a big transformation for myself personally to get to this point where I am. I'm really a normal person. Even though a lot of the personality psychology puts me into less than 2% of the world's population in how I'm wired, but I'm just a normal girl, just a normal person doing things that I feel really strongly about. I have like a golden thread that runs through my whole life and my working life in particular. I have an agricultural degree, which taught me how to how the planet works and how we can influence and live in our environment. Then after that, I became a master classical and orthopedic massage therapist. And, I did a lot of pain management and treatments of injuries, which taught me the intricacies of kind of the human anatomy, physiology, kinesiology, and cellular memory. And so basically how the body works, the vessel that carries us throughout our whole lives, our whole lives, like complete, from birth to death, how that works. Then I worked with gender studies, women's work, men's work, generational work that taught me how we operate within and sometimes outside of different societal norms. And finally, I got into personality psychology, which we all know empowers us to make the best possible decisions for ourselves and those decisions that affect the people around us who are important to us. But all of this work, throughout different countries, throughout different careers, so to speak, all of this brought me to this conclusion. If we integrate ourselves, all of ourselves, all of who we are, our bodies, how we nourish our mind and our bodies, and how we make decisions, then we can live a more wholesome, authentic experience where all of us on this planet have the power to advance humanity so that we can leave the planet a more, comfortable place for our future generations. Now, that just to give you a little bit of background of before I'm going to actually answer your question. So I just came from a very ordinary background, did a lot of studies, studied science, then studied how the human body works, then studied psychology, personality psychology, and brought everything together. And throughout that whole history of work, I created multiple 6-figure businesses around that, those different topics, which gave me, and in different countries too. So it gave me a lot of experience in how the world actually works as a larger entity and how we can affect change in that space. So now to answer your question, what I'm doing these days is I'm training mentors. I'm training people to become mentors who can help other people, a lot like coaches, who can help a lot of people, forward in their own vision and direction in their lives. But the difference between us mentors and what a lot of coaches do is that we are people who've gone through those experiences ourselves. So we only help people with the things that we've, experienced firsthand. So we have about 20 people all around the world doing this, either studying or have already qualified to become mentors. So that's what I'm currently really focusing on, is creating more of that impact all over the world, so that we can have a mentor in every time zone, hopefully in not so distant future. So
that's super awesome.
Yeah.
So you kind of brought up two things there, and I'm going to try to remember the other one so I can just focus. You were able to transition from these, I'm going to call them weirdly not the same professions and studies and everything, and you were able to do that. And how did you get around the mindset stigma of that people are jumping all around, or that they're they're moving from completely different thing to a completely different thing, and you were able to make that jump what seemed to be 4 or 5 times?
I've had so many careers in my life. I've been a cleaning lady. I worked in a bar. I loved those professions for different reasons, and sometimes out of necessity. we've all worked at a burger joint. Not that there's anything wrong with that. The biggest thing I learned in a burger joint was how to, or in this particular joint that I was working in, was how to follow procedures. And anybody who's successful in business knows how important procedures are, and standard operating procedures and so on. So the wiring that I have is to utilize every piece of information that I get, regardless of where it comes from, and then draw a bridge between the current reality and how that piece of information is going to help me to get to the next space. So that's how I've technically done it. How I've practically done it is just embrace every possibility of learning in life, because we get a lot of, especially in the coaching industry or in personal development industry. And I mean, I've written 2 best-selling courses that have sold thousands and thousands of courses all around the world. So I understand that the personal development industry from that perspective, but we get criticized if we're not, a therapist. We all have to be a counselor or a therapist, or what. We actually have to be human first. We're all human beings. Whatever whatever piece of paper, and I have all these certificates and everything, I don't even have them anywhere. They're somewhere packed away on the top shelf. I don't care. We need to have humans meeting humans. Our qualifications don't make us something. We are something, and then we create from that space if we choose to do that. And I'm not saying qualifications are not important. And I'm not saying that I can do what a therapist does. I don't want to do what a therapist does. I want the people that need a therapist to go to a therapist and be helped by a therapist. And that's why we, especially in our organization, we link up in different countries, in different cities, with therapists, with other people who are, working in this industry, that we can, for our clients, give the best possible service. Now, to answer your question, so I have this whole backlog of information that I have to give before I can answer your question. So I'm sorry. I hope that's helpful.
Alex.
But I think the main thing is to not judge, is to not have a preconceived idea of how it should be or what the track should look like. We all have a wealth of knowledge within ourselves that we deny because it doesn't fit a box. And that's really sad, to me personally, because I see amazing people, doing things that they love, but they feel like their experience can't enhance the experience of their client, for example. And it can, because we're all people. We all have the basic same experiences in life. You know, we all have, somebody breaks our heart, you know, somebody sets boundaries with us and it doesn't feel good, or, you know, somebody's, you know, you lose a parent, or you lose even a child. Oh my gosh. You know, we have those experiences and we shouldn't shy away from those. And so how I bring it all together is through this mentoring program, because it's not, mentoring is not about, you know, it's not predominantly about your techniques and what you're going to use on the person. Mentoring is showing up as a person to be there with your client and meet that person, and then listen, then just listen, and then offer the kind of the golden nuggets that you have to offer from your own personal experience.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love that you've become very passionate about integrating everything that you do and everything that who you are. And I want to talk and kind of switch a little bit over into, you know, you've created a whole movement really of like the Introvert Success Initiative, and
Yeah.
you know, really helping, you know, just like you said, helping people with where they are and giving your nuggets from there. So, you know, I know we have a lot of introverts that may be listening. We have all sorts of different personality types. And so we talked a little bit about that integrating. What does that look like? And let's shift a little bit over into the Introvert Initiative and how you really help them.
Sure. So the basic integration process is understanding that you have 4 different people who are living within you. One of the courses that I've written is called The 4 People Within, and I'm in a process of writing a book with the working title is 4 People Within, you know, discover yourself and live an extraordinary life. Because when you do discover these 4 different people that are living within you, you can then understand not just yourself better, you can understand other people better. You can really make a difference in yourself by nurturing these 4 different people, and then also creating relationships within yourself between those 4 different people. Just understanding that there is a person that is a thinker, you think. There's a person who's a feeler, so you feel things. And those are your predominant decision-making parts of you, your thinker and your feeler. Then you have 2 ways that you collect information. You have intuition, which a lot of people can, you know, relate to as this sense of something is happening, but you can't really see it. So something's happening like behind the curtain, or, you know, under the hood, so so to speak, or sensing. So you use your 5 senses to kind of, you know, feel and see and taste and touch and hear information that you take in. Now, depending on who's collecting the information and to whom they're feeding it to make a decision, your life takes a certain course. And some of this information will sound familiar to you if you're familiar with the works of Carl Jung or Myers-Briggs, Isabel Briggs-Myers, who created the Myers-Briggs personality indicator system. And the 4 People Within is like a continuation of the work of both Carl Jung, and it's not really necessarily a continuation of Isabel Briggs-Myers' work. It's more the Myers-Briggs system can almost like bypass a lot of the learning process. So if you understand Myers-Briggs, it makes this process a lot faster. You don't have to. But what the 4 People Within does is it shows you very clearly who is your adult self. So you have to have an adult self who is, you know, kind of setting the course of your life. You also have 2 little inner children. So you have like a 3-year-old inner child, and you have like a 10-year-old little inner child. And the 3-year-old inner child is a very interesting part of us. It's almost like the least developed part of us, but the most kind of guttural, the most passionate. Like, she's, in my case, it's a she's a little muse, you know. She kind of tells me, you know, what gives me joy in life and what I should be doing, you know, that little piece that really helps me stay on my purpose. Then the 10-year-old inner child is a like little black and white, you know how 10-year-old, you know, preteens, these 7 to 10-year-old children, they have enough information to think that they know how everything works. So they're like super black and white, and they just kind of say, no, this is how it is. This is how it is. And what that 10-year-old inner child does is, in my case, she brings me clarity on concepts. So she brings me, this is right and this is wrong. And then when I do that, then I can soften it. So it doesn't have to be that black and white, but she she kind of keeps me on track of what's right for me and what's not right for me, if that makes sense. And then the fourth person is what we call the inner parent. And the inner parent, so you have two people that are grown-ups. You have the adult self and you have the inner parent. And then you have two parts of you that are the like childlike parts of you, less developed parts of you, the inner 3-year-old and the inner 10-year-old. The grown-up people have one decision maker and one information gatherer within them. And the inner children have one decision maker and one information gatherer. So just bear with me, this is a little bit technical, but if you think about 80% of businesses failing in the first 5 years, it's actually generally because the children have been in charge. So the children have collected the information and made the decisions about your business. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. Because the stories that we tell and what I'm saying, my inner 3-year-old, when you say that, she's amused too. She's super happy, and so yeah, it makes complete.
When she was telling you, I was like,
I know you were looking at me. I could feel your eyes staring at me, and I don't know where this falls, but I also have like my I call her my 90-year-old yoga teacher, because
nice.
Creating that when I'm old, she's like the wisdom, the like. The wisdom piece. I can tap into my 90-year-old yoga teacher at any moment and get the wisdom in it. So I don't know where she falls in the 4 pieces. Maybe I have a 5th one. I don't know.
So these are all people who are living inside of you, and you can, as you're doing with your, you might have like even a physical yoga teacher who's 90, who is your role model for one of those people, just to kind of help you connect with that part of you. But you can see, like, if you make decisions that are like, if your inner children, if you're in business and your inner child decision maker is feeling, you might make super emotional decisions that are not going to be good for your business. You're like, thinking that you're going to have this amount of money at the end of the tax year, and then you go and buy a convertible only to find out that you can't deduct it from the tax, like those kinds of things. Or if your inner child is a thinker, then your heart's just not in the business. You just become when they're triggered and they take over and start making decisions, you kind of lose that softness and that love that you have for the business, and it just becomes about I always tell this story when you have staff and they've done a great job, and you're in your inner child thinking process, so it's not very healthy, and they've done a great job. They want to go to the wineries for like a little bonus, like a Christmas party. They want to go to the wineries, but because you're so conscious, you don't take their emotions into consideration. You bring them to Cracker Factory. Nobody wants to go to Cracker Factory for Christmas party. So it's that kind of connecting to the emotion of why you're doing what you're doing.
So how do you do that? How can you be intentional about, without sounding like you're some schizophrenic, like, hold on, I got to go talk to my adult for a minute. I got to go tap in with your child. Like, how can you, like, the practical way of being able to tap in and really use this for your advantage?
Yeah. Well, like anything, it's a skill. So you just need to practice it in the right kind of an environment where people don't think you're schizophrenic for talking to the different parts of you. And one of the reasons why we're creating this, like, a more global movement around, we have students everywhere in the world. We have, the kind of the right groups, with closed groups where people can come and practice this. They can, purchase the 4 people within course that will give them the very kind of basics, so you can study it at home. But also, some of our qualified mentors are now starting to run little groups, little micro 4-people groups, to do like group coaching, group mentoring on a weekly basis, just to give that almost like a little micro environment in this big world where this is normal. Because let's face it, you know it yourself. Like, if your software is not integrated with your hardware, you will have a problem. It's just a question of time. And it's the same thing for you as a person. If you're not integrated within yourself, then you won't be playing at maximum.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
It's really about accepting your weird and embracing it.
We're all about that.
Yeah,
So actually, that's funny. We had the other day, we were interviewing somebody to potentially be in our coaching program, and he was really kind of straight-laced, from Texas, and really cool guy, but just not like weird. I mean, like, we're weird people, and so
we're totally. When you're talking about this, I'm like, yep, I got my inner child. She's got like little fairy wings. She's running around. I see her very vividly.
Yeah.
Like and then,
Nice.
he's like the typical. I'm gonna stereotype, and I apologize, and just to kind of map the picture out, like older gentleman, financial advisor, very from Texas. I don't know how else to say it. Like just so we actually had to like qualify him, like to see if him being in our coaching was really going to match, because we're very open.
If we start doing we offer actually a bonus for our group. We do quantum healing session that basically goes back to your past lives and heals like traumas and stuff, and all this clears all this stuff out. And like I couldn't imagine pitching this to this guy as a bonus. Like, so you know what I mean? Like if I don't feel like one of my bonuses that I think has been super valuable for both of us as it being a value to him, or him being not open, it just makes it an interesting thing. So, so that's my next question is, how do you discover, like, so Holly has her, 3-year-old, but like how do you discover your different people?
Well, the very fastest way to discover that is to go over to personalityhacker.com and take the Genius Style Assessment. That will give you your Myers-Briggs results. So that's what I was talking about before when I was saying, if you know your Myers-Briggs, this is going to be a lot faster. And so we do actually generally recommend that you go and do that. And then once you have your Myers-Briggs personality figured out, as in it has to resonate with you. If it doesn't resonate with you, then keep doing different tests and keep finding out what actually fits you, because these tests aren't perfect, but they're a great indicator. And then once you know that, you then know where your thinker and your feeler are. So if they're in the kind of the grown-up parts or the inner child parts, the same with the inner intuitive and the inner sensor, you'll find out where they sit. And then you can start kind of assigning tasks for those different people. So for example, the adult self, okay, so for me, it's introverted intuition. So I am, I collect a lot of information and I put it into the right place in my head. That's my adult self. And that's where the kind of the genius comes from, and the willingness to implement everything I learn. So if that was the case, then I'd be looking at, I need to understand that this is a real big strength for me. I want to harness this. I want to make sure that this is what gives me, this adult self part gives me energy in life. So I need to make sure that at least 50%, if not more, of my day is actually of those activities. Then you find out who your inner parent is through that process as well. The inner parent is the opposite of your adult self in a way that if your adult self is introverted in orientation, like in my case it is, bless you, then the inner parent has to be extroverted because they're balancing you out. And also in my case, the adult self is an information gatherer, so the inner parent has to be a decision maker. So they balance each other out that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And so the people that are they have to keep on getting more information before they can make a decision. That person's like adult is in charge, essentially. Their person, their gatherer of information's in charge, and it's way leaning into that direction.
Yeah.
And how they get these unbalanced people that can't make a decision to save their life.
And it's not, and so there's two different reasons why people can't make decisions. Either, as you said, they run with a information collecting part of them, so they need to collect a lot of information. Then there are the other people who are afraid of making the wrong decision, and they're usually the ones that run with a decision making process, but it's not very healthy. So we need to kind of find out why you have a hard time collecting information. If you know who your 4 people within are, I can pretty much tell you why you're having a hard time making a decision. Like, what is it that you actually need to know, or what is the information that you have to have in order for you to be able to make this decision? And that is one of the big things that we do, is we actually help people make good decisions for themselves. So we're not telling people, as mentors, we're not telling people what their decisions should be. We just understand what their coding is, like how those 4 different people are interacting within them, and then helping them make a decision from that is actually authentic for them.
Got it. So one of the things that I've kind of seen, and I think it's happened with Holly, is like, look, and actually, no, now that I think about it, I was really shy before. And then when I started doing personal development, I was able to like rip some. So if I had to guess, my personal development, or excuse me, my personality has changed over periods of time. So is that an integration that happened that allowed some opening up?
Yeah. So your personal wiring doesn't actually change. In my research, it is defined by your imprint period. So between 3 to 7 years of age, your personality develops to what it's going to be. So your wiring is there, but you can change how that wiring shows up by doing integration work. So you can pretty much, I'm one of the most introverted people you'll ever meet, and you wouldn't think that. So you can pretty much take any person or any wiring or any type and balance things out to a point where, people are having a hard time trying to figure out what my personality is anymore, because it kind of becomes irrelevant, but it's a great starting point. We want to make sure that, especially, so all of these things have to serve a purpose. So we're not just talking about this just for the sake of getting high on information. If your personality is helping you in your business, with your bottom line, your profits, that is fantastic. If it's not, do something about it, because it's one of the biggest pot of gold that you're actually sitting on.
Well, it's not even just business, it's life. Like if you go into a room and you can't have conversations with people because you're leaning way too hard in one direction, you're afraid to make some sort of mistake, or or whatever is like happening. It's really interesting.
Yeah, and you've done a great job, Chad, as well. Like, look at you. You were saying that you were shy, and look at you now. Like, there's nothing shy about you when I see you out and about.
I might have went the other way a little.
well, and that actually happens. I know you're kind of joking about it, but it does happen. And so we start here, and then we get here, we learn all this stuff, and we get here, and then we tend to go like, you know what, this isn't actually super authentic for me. I'm going to bring it back a little bit. So you kind of find yourself, but it's a scale. Everything's a scale in life. There's no black and white, even though our 10-year-old and our children would like to think that everything's black and white, but it's not.
Yeah. It's interesting. I see, like, to personality, because I love the personality quizzes and the Myers-Briggs. So I see that you're the INFJ and I'm an ENFP. But then sometimes I feel like I'm actually a little bit more introverted. And so you really kind of clarified for that. But I'm not introverted, because that doesn't really fit me. But I'm just like, hey, look at me. I'm just like this extroverted person. Because after a while, it just wears me out. I love my me time and my space. So it just makes sense that this integration process. And I feel like we could probably talk about this for ages, because I'm just going through, like, I'm looking at all of your pages and stuff as we're going through it. I can really see how this can be a huge value for people, ultimately for everything, because like you said, if you're trying to be one, like, if you're one thing, but that's not really, because each personality helps you be able to be the most effective in whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah, most definitely. Holly, do you want a quick read?
Sure.
I know you're into
I'll take it.
So you resonate with ENFP.
Mm-hmm.
So you're an extroverted, intuitive feeler, perceiver. And what that basically means, so tell me if none of this resonates with you, if some of this doesn't resonate with you, because I don't want to assume anything about you. But what I know about you so far and what I've seen, the reason why you need that introverted time is because there's your inner parent is actually called authenticity or introverted feeling. So whatever you're doing out there in the world, you have to be okay with it. Because if you're not okay with it, it can't happen. You can't force yourself to do it, at least not for a long period of time, right?
May or may not be annoying as shit.
That is spot on.
And so you have to reconcile everything. Your inner parent has to reconcile anything that you do to make sure that you're actually okay with it. Also, your inner 10-year-old, who is an information gatherer as well as your inner parent. Your inner parent is a decision maker. Your inner 10-year-old is what we call effectiveness. So you're likely, when your inner 10-year-old is activated, you're likely to want to make sure that everything in the outside world is in a specific order that makes sense to you. Other people may not agree with that order, but it has to make sense to you because it leads back to the authenticity piece. And then your lovely little inner 3-year-old, whom we call memory, Personality Hacker also calls memory, came up with these amazing nicknames to just explain these little people inside of you. This 3-year-old wonderful little child, she's so beautiful, and she just wants to belong and to have a sense of that she knows how things are going to go from here, and she needs the certainty of and the reassurance that everything's going to be okay and that you belong in a specific way in the world. Does that resonate with you?
That's like totally spot on, and I know he's like probably laughing at every single thing. It is 1,000,000% spot on.
So why do they call it memory? Why is that?
So Personality Hacker has done an amazing job in creating a couple of tools. One of them is this nicknames, and one of them is a car model. And the nicknames are called certain things because they describe the function. So the memory is actually introverted sensing. So introverted sensing doesn't mean anything to anyone. Whereas unless you've studied this stuff. But if we look at memory, it's for you, Holly, for example, for the introverted sensing, it's important to create safe memories and almost like traditions and things that give you that sense of, oh, I remember I belong here. This is where I am. But I don't want to butcher Personality Hackers, language either. So they can probably do much better job in.
So it's interesting, right? So I don't know if you knew this and what episodes you've listened to, but Holly lost her memory about a year ago now,
right?
From the seizures, and when she came out, she kind of lost that version of her.
Yes.
So it was so she didn't have that 3-year-old, whimsical,
That's a straight powerhouse.
Yeah, so it's really interesting that when she was separated from that part of her memory, she lost that, almost the emotional side, like a lot of those, that missed, or that was gone, and the whimsical, really things that she's into weren't there.
The connection and presence to herself and who she has been in this way.
Well, yeah, I mean, she didn't know who she was, and because
yeah.
It was really interesting because I've taken that quiz before my seizures, and then I take it because but now that you say your personality never changes, so I've always had the same, I've always come up as an ENFP. I've taken it multiple times through years, and it still always comes up the same. So when I hear that makes sense. It's just really interesting. As my brain healed and I got things back, I went I'm still who I am, regardless of the things I went through. This is who I am. So
that is who you are. And I had PTSD last year, and PTSD has been now qualified as a form of brain injury. And so when we have those experiences when a part of our brain is shut down because of the injury within the brain for whatever reason, if it's seizures, it can be any number of reasons. What happens is that we lose that part of ourselves until the brain recovers, and then we start so if you just think about, I can only really talk about PTSD because I haven't had brain injuries myself other than that, but I do have one of my mentoring student is actually, she has a company called the Brain Injury Project, and she's had 3 major traumatic brain injuries throughout her life. So we've talked quite a lot about this, but it's with the PTSD, it was like the brain was bruised, and this is how a lot of people who've suffered from episodes, such as yourself, have also explained it. It's like I have no access to that part of my brain, so it's like it's not there. Of course it's there, and once the bruising, kind of the swelling goes down and the bruising kind of goes away, you start to get those parts of you back. And if you have unreversible brain injury, you never get those things back. And that's why, people say, if you've had like a really severe accident and you actually physiologically lose a part of your brain, the person is not the same person anymore. It doesn't mean that the wiring wasn't there. It's just physiologically, the situation has changed. So yeah, no, I hear you.
Interesting. So one of the things I remembered it. That's good. My memory is on. So you've been able to kind of create a business that's very successful, that is not like reliant on you. So you've created those systems. So you took those procedures from the hamburger joint and put them into your business. I picked that up. And so this mentorship, and having one in, you said 20 right now, correct?
Yeah, about 20, yeah. I think 21, 23. Sorry?
How many time zones are there?
Sorry, how many?
You said you wanted one in each time zone.
Oh, yeah. It would be great if we had one in each time zone, but we don't know, 24 hours, so 24.
Well, 24, yeah. So you're only 4 away.
So close enough.
You probably have like some double ups. So who knows?
We do, yeah. And we have people in Europe, in Africa, North America, Asia, Australia, obviously. So we're in, different places.
But getting to the point of 2 questions, like, how are you getting there? How are you finding these mentors? What does this business look like in like 3 to 5 years? And how are we getting there?
Okay. So firstly, how I find the clients is they generally do the integration work with us. So the 4 people within work with us, because these are the people who see the actual power of this work, and they want to make sure, because it's changed their lives so considerably, they want to make sure that it's available for other people. But also what tends to happen is we only really attract people who are ready to truly own their own lives, like live a really authentic life experience. And we can see how much stuff is going on in the world that has nothing to do with reality, is not grounded in reality. You only have to look at politics or this industry that we work in. There are a lot of people who are doing a lot of things or having these expressions of non-balance. So I'm not judging people posting stuff on Facebook about stuff that's good. I think that's fantastic that you do that. But also we need to understand as human race that life isn't just ups. We need to allow ourselves to experience the low so that we can experience the highs in a different way. So a lot of our clients, when they see this work and what it does, is they kind of think, well, I have experience in sexual abuse, or, I have personal experience in overcoming brain injury, or, HR. We have so many different students from so many different walks of life where they see the value of the work and they want to implement it in what they're already doing or what their personal experience has been. One of our amazing students is a nurse. She's going to want to do this integration work for nurses, because nurses are some of the most undervalued, most over abused professionals in the kind of the Western world. So it's literally, people do this for themselves and they go like, I could help those who are behind me. I'm a couple of steps ahead. I want to do that. So that's where we get most of our clients.
That's super awesome.
Sorry?
I just said that was super awesome.
Yeah. Well, we're all people, and it keeps coming back to that. We're all normal people, but that doesn't mean that we don't have a lot to offer. So we need to make sure that, I'm the vehicle for those offerings to come to fruition, so to speak. So where I want to be in 3 to 5 years' time, working on getting a person into each time zone, have available all around the world, have connections between these mentors. So we have like a referral network. So if I have somebody over here that, you know, needs a brain injury expert, then I know exactly whom to send that person to get real authentic help. If I have another person who's massive into the kind of the different movements, there's a person, you know, a queer person. We've been talking about creating like 4 queer people within, so that we can have the queer, you know, that we can service the queer, our queer audience, because we want everyone to make their best life for themselves. So if I have, you know, I'm queer, I have this problem that I can't relate to people, I don't know how to get a mentor that's not going to judge me, or a coach that's going to judge me, I'm just going to say, hey, come over here and talk to this person, she's fantastic. And, you know, so I want to create this space, like a global network of people that we can just automatically say, you need that, talk to this person, you need that, you go and talk to that person. And so in kind of 3 to 5 years time, I want to have that. But also, as I'm working through the book, the 4 People Within book, as we are as it is right now, it's been a book 3 years in coming and still going, but we'll get there. I want to have that available in schools, maybe, you know, secondary schools, like high schools, so that people, when they learn about themselves, that they go into the world a lot more prepared, a lot more understanding of themselves, a lot more understanding of other people, and have that information available so that we as human race can not only sustain the planet, but bring ourselves forward.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. I'm really intrigued. Like, I'm sitting here like, this was not at all what I thought this interview was going to go. And I love it. And I know I've said, like, I think this is my favorite, like, multiple times, but I think this is, like, one of my favorites. Like, by far, I literally, it's absolutely incredible what you're doing. I think, you know, we just got off a call with our clients, and, you know, we're just working through one of our clients, and one of his specialties is really bringing out the authentic self in people and helping them have to really shine who they are. And I can just see, like, just a huge benefit of what this really does. You just hit on something that was kind of big, and we were just talking about, you know, being online and how everyone talks about all the good and all of the yay, look at me. And something that and like you said, we're human. That's not always how it goes. Okay, so this is why it's one of my favorite questions is, you know, what would you say has been your, you know, biggest low, or I like failure, I don't really believe in the word, but failure, and then how are you able to overcome that?
My biggest regret has been not knowing who to allow to influence me. So, you know, letting the wrong people into my life, so to speak, which led me actually to having a stalker. We had to go to court and get a 5-year restraining order on this person because it was a serious situation, and it's still ongoing. So as in, you know, I don't know, we're on year 3, I think. So in 2 years time, I don't know what's going to happen. Things like that, and having coaches that are all about the hype and all about the, like, collection of the revenue rather than actually like staying present with their clients. Those kinds of things have been my biggest regret in life. But of course, like with any failure, you fail forward, you learn from it. It won't happen again. You know, I'm a lot more picky about who I let into my life, who I allow to influence me. I have amazing support network right now. My partner, Peter, who's an entrepreneur himself, he is creating I don't want to say too much about this project, but it's going to blow the bottom out of the coaching industry. It's called Empowerment Circles, and because there's a saturation of coaches right now in the industry who are not offering value, those people who will be offering value will always have clients. But this what Peter is working on is, in my opinion, this is not sales pitch for his stuff at all. He can well do it himself. But from my perspective, this is going to serve all those people who have been maybe wrongly, you know, treated in this industry, and it's going to be able to help those people go forward. But so just having a partner who's a visionary, who's already had successful businesses himself, is fantastic. You know, I have a mentor who's based in the US. He's one of my closest confidants in terms of business. Obviously, he's my mentor. But just, I regret having been so easily influenced by people who haven't been good, who haven't held my integrity and my needs at the forefront of their intent, so to speak. But having said that, because of those situations, I now know who I can and can't trust. So
yeah, I think all lows everything is working for us always. Every single piece to be able to create, that greatness. And I can see, like, you clearly have. I am absolutely loving this idea of helping people, like, really learn about who they really are and these 4 personalities within, and how to be able to use that in their life and be powerful with that. So if you're listening to this, like, where can we send our listeners for them to learn more about you and to learn more about your program?
Yeah, so you can go on to, so we're in a bit of a transition right now, but you can go on to merjasumilov.com, merjasumiloff.com, and you'll probably post a link below. But you can go there and you can find the courses there. We are actually in the process of changing our branding into the Sumilov Academy of Human Integration. So you'll find a little bit of crossover with branding. But right now, because we'll get there when we get there, it's much more important to actually help people on a day-to-day basis than to rebrand yourself. We're a lot more interested in continuing the work no matter what it, where it's at. So I'm not too worried about that. But in case it kind of confuses you, that's why. But that's where you can go. You can always also find me on Facebook. I'm pretty active on Facebook. We have a couple of closed groups. If you want to start your human integration journey yourself, you'll have this community of people who will be willing to be as weird as you.
Awesome. I love it. I am just so thankful and grateful. Thank you for coming on and taking the time.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. And listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Influencer Profits, and we will see you next time.
Bye.